You are listening to the Lucha Central Podcast Network. And now, Lucha Central Weekly.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast. This is the podcast that lets you know all of the latest happening in the world of Lucha Libre. Each week our team discusses news and events from this past week as well as preview the week ahead, covering Mexico-based promotions and top independents along with luchador-related news from throughout the United States. The Lucha Central Weekly Podcast is part of the Lucha Central Podcast Network on luchacentral.com. This podcast and others from the network are also available on all major podcast streaming platforms like iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Podbay, Speaker, and much, much more. My name is Miranda Morales, and I'm one of the co-hosts of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast, and let's bring in the rest of the team. Introducing first, he is the dashing one, Mr. Dusty Murphy. Dusty, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic, Miranda. How are you doing?
I am doing well. Very excited to get into this week's show. So much to cover, which we cannot do. I stress we cannot do this without the third member of this trio team. And who am I talking about?
Who?
It is the one and only Brendan Barr.
That's
Hey, how we doing?
Doing well, doing quite well. I have to reveal a little bit behind the curtain. We were just talking about independent wrestling prior to the show and how things are opening back up. And I know we talked about this a little bit last week as well, but it does seem like just in general, things are kind of opening back up. I don't know if there's any way to say it, but life is resuming. I don't want to say maybe to a sense of normalcy, but to whatever this new normal is.
A little more like what it was before. Like,
yes.
Just so people know, part of what we were doing was we were discussing wrestling travel. Like, maybe I'll go to Vegas for this weekend and I'll see this show, which is, just 2 months ago. Like, no, I'm not doing anything. I'm gonna stay at home. So we're reaching some landmark points here.
Yes.
I just hope the crazy anti-maskers don't ruin it for all of us.
Right.
As Lucha Libre fans, we're certified maskers.
Yes, that's true. It's a good habit to pick up.
That's
just
not
saying.
To say we don't appreciate you listening to the show, even if you're anti-mask. But it seems like wearing your mask is the fastest way to stop the spread. And
absolutely.
Well, and I think you bring up a good point. We will see what happens in the next few months. I think that's what a lot of 2020 was, some peaks happening in the summer and things trying to, slowly reopen to have to only close again. So I think that now there's lots of factors in place. So I think this will be different, but it is just very interesting to see what the summer will hold. I know especially, for wrestling fans, I think this week, some news started to kind of circulate about WWE looking for a possible location outside of Florida for SummerSlam. So even for WWE, that's a very big, move for them to, do a major pay-per-view event outside of Florida, which has been the safe haven for wrestling period now. For at least 6 months. So that too will be very big if say they do SummerSlam, in another state. And again, people traveling, it will almost feel like somewhat normal for, in essence, WWE doing a major show, traveling again.
Oh, it's almost back to quote unquote normal when the WWE is sending house shows to your state again. But that's That's still probably a little ways off.
Still a little ways away. Well, I mean, since we're already talking about this, we might as well lead off with the road back to shows with Brendan.
Oh man, the road back to shows. So, Mexico City, Orange. I said last week, I believe, that they had 2 weeks to get together for the anniversary. I believe that's, not going to happen because the show that I was thinking of seems to be this weekend, but we'll talk about that at CMLL later. So, Mexico City Still Orange, CMLL has been playing by the rules and hasn't had fans, but has been taping a lot. So they do have the first taping. Other people have been doing secret shows again. And once again, the government has come out and said, please don't do that because that ruins the fun for everybody. So I'm just gonna bring that up again. Like, I know we all want to get back to wrestling, and I know that especially indie wrestlers who don't have a big CMLL contract or WWE or AEW, you guys want to do shows, and I get it. This is your passion and your craft, but be safe about it. Go do shows in places where they have safety precautions in here. That's why I keep asking for people to tell me more about your safety precautions. I can say things about shows that are positive and help wrestlers find shows and help fans find safe shows. So, from secret shows unless you know that they're doing everything to be safe. And generally, you wouldn't need to be secret if that's the case. Also, on Twitter this week, and I think on other social media, a new lucha promotion called Federation Wrestling started advertising. And it caught a lot of people's attention because the initial image showed 3 wrestlers. I think you will sense the pattern when I start saying the names of these 3 wrestlers. And then 3 silhouettes behind them. The same way that, like wrestling promotions will do for mystery wrestlers. I had the word in Spanish in my head, and it just shot right out. Luchador Sorpresa.
Sorpresa, yes.
Yes. Which is a shirt that you can buy from Mass Republic. I saw a couple of actual wrestlers wearing it at Expo Lucha, which made me laugh really hard. So the 3 wrestlers that they showed were Bestia del Dragon, Lee, and Roosh. So a lot of people are speculating that this might be the promotion that Roosh was teasing may happen earlier, and the silhouettes looked very distinctly like they would be other people from the Ingobernables faction. Although, again, you can't really prove anything because it's just a silhouette. Like the joke that my friends were using is the "Who's that Pokemon" thing. You can usually tell. Like it's.
I love that.
But
yeah, it's true though.
So we'll see. They're advertising for June 21st with pay-per-view. I've heard rumors that they've also announced a few other big names, but I'm not gonna say those big names yet because I haven't seen the advertising myself. So, but if it's true, this sounds like it could be a loaded card or at least a loaded sounding card until card subject to change happens. So keep your ears open for Federation Wrestling. And then, as we were talking about moving more toward the way things we're going to have less talk about road back to shows, and we will be doing more segments like what we're about to do here. So this week we had a person on Twitter tag Masked Republic and me and a couple of other people, and he asked the following question. His name is MK96 Flores, by the way, just so if you're listening this week, MK96 Flores, thank you for asking the question. I know you were asking around, you mentioned it in your tweet, but we are happy to answer questions and do interaction like this. This is concerning Ivelisse. He asked who did Ivelisse kill where they had to release her with all of the deadweight in AEW? Why is she the first to go? In the past, act like a fool. Promoter would job you out for a while. The family company just sent her packing. We're talking a bit about this last week. Whichever one of you wants to jump on, I'll let you guys start off on this. I've done some research too. I know we all have opinions.
Go ahead, Dusty.
I have my opinions.
I know, that's why I was like, it's
kind of like in Justified. If you meet an asshole in the morning, you met an asshole. But if every company you worked for, you had a problem and somebody called you an asshole, you might just be an asshole.
I mean, yeah, that is definitely an opinion. Go ahead.
To make it, you have to be an asshole.
Yes.
You absolutely have to.
We talked about that
and there's a different
week.
standard for women and men. And
yes.
She has done nothing approaching like what Austin Aries or somebody like that has done. But she gets treated way worse. And so, I don't know. I mean, I'm conflicted on it. I feel like I say, that, you have to be that way. You just have to because everybody's going to walk all over you if you don't. That's the only way. You've got to self-advocate. You've got to be that person. But then again, you can't expect to lead the match when the champion from another company is coming into a championship match just because you're older.
Yeah.
Like, it's I have a complex feelings about it.
Yeah.
And this is why to work on that question a little bit, we all are going to have feelings on this, so we're all going to sound off a little bit, and then we'll kind of, maybe you'll be able to form a better idea. Go ahead, Miranda.
I was just going to ask, so did we get clarification? Was she officially signed to a contract, or was she still doing paid per appearance? Because I do feel like that somewhat of that structure can be like, if they stopped utilizing her because she was on a per paid appearance, is different than letting go of her after an established contractual obligation. So because I do feel like they have people who come in on a per appearance paid schedule and they just don't use them after that. That's not a contract. That's not an agreement. It's just, hey, we have this, they just, and it seems like a lot of people on that roster are on a per paid appearance or per appearance paid schedule. So I do feel like that may help show that, I think I do remember hearing that she was signed, but they didn't release anything in the press about it. But I also feel like when people are contractually signed, it's just a different standard and different structure. So I feel like that could just be a part of the story, because there are people who are let go for whatever reason. We just don't hear about it as much, just because they bring on the next big thing and, here's this other big shiny thing, and we kind of forget about, who they used and they haven't used. But I absolutely agree with what Dusty is saying about, you have to really advocate for yourself, stand up for yourself, and the perception of that between men and women are very, very different in the world of wrestling. But also I think her approach about it in going forth and how she's kind of verbally gone after Thunder Rosa. Granted, they have a very long history. Thunder Rosa now is part of Lucha Libre and America's sweetheart. So I do feel like that is adding fuel to the fire of, wow, you're a real jerk, because why are you talking all this stuff about Thunder Rosa? She's great. She's wonderful. Look what she's doing. Granted, whatever beef they have between them, that's on them. But I think that that's adding more negativity to the story. that I think is making her look worse. On top of just whatever drama she had with the company, bringing in that history with Thunder Rosa after Thunder Rosa now has done so much and has become more viewed in the public eye, and people really, really like her. So, of course, they're going to now look at Ivelisse as the bad guy.
You're 100% correct that by saying Thunder Rosa's name out loud during her complaints, she's not doing her perception of herself. Mm-hmm. And like, I feel like she probably had potential beef that happened backstage, because she alludes to that trainers were part of the issue, and that all of that. And you is immune from that problem, which has plagued wrestling for a long time, that you get people a little bit of power and sometimes they go a little bit crazy with it, right? Like, I don't know the exact nature of her complaint, so I'm not going to speculate too much on that, but I feel like she's gone out of her way to say that and mention that, and if that, where she had left it and left names out of it instead of continuing to mention Thunder Rosa, I think she would probably have a little more sympathy to her complaints. No, but to Miranda's point, Thunder Rosa is a sweetheart right now. So, like, you know, even if she was literally eating people like Matanza in Lucha Underground, they'd be like, no, not Thunder Rosa. She's fine. She's great. I did a little bit of research in that interview that Ivelisse talked about the Thunder Rosa incident. The one time she talked about it, shortly after their match, that was when she said she had been signed. She was finally allowed to officially say it. And then I cross-referenced that with the AEW podcast where Aubrey was talking about the levels of contract. So it sounds like she was at the lowest tier of contract, where you are more free to wrestle other places, but you will get paid every time they choose to use you. But that also means that you have to prioritize the AEW show. So if you're going to do, if you are going to do an AEW date, you can't also take a date in Japan on the same weekend, which obviously wasn't happening during the pandemic anyway, but that's more or less what that contract does. I also agree that I think if you look at the way that the roster has fluctuated up and down over the past 6 months of the pandemic, I think other people probably have quietly had that tier of contract just let go, and they haven't really said much about it. So I don't think, if you were to look closer, I don't think Ivelisse is the only one who's been let go. I think she's the only one who said anything about it because she had more emotional investment in it. I think that if you look at some of these other people who are doing a few appearances on Dark here and there, or would just fly out to Florida hoping to every Wednesday, I think that a lot of them just didn't worry about it when the contract was done. They took their paychecks and then they went back to doing indie circuit matches with a higher profile and a bigger pay rate. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where I'm at. I hope this helps MK96 Flores get a little bit of clarity on this. Semi-professional. I don't get paid for this nonsense. But from knowing people in the indies and knowing people at AEW and knowing that, I don't think she's the only one that's been let go. I think she's the only one that's said anything about it. And that I think she might have some good reasons for it, but also to Dusty's point, she's been in a lot of trouble everywhere she goes, so maybe she just takes that just a tiny step too far everything.
Well, and like, even if you have problems there, like, it's sometimes the way you leave more than what caused you to leave.
Yeah, very fair.
Yes.
Very fair.
Yeah, if you burn the bridges on your way out, then that's what people will remember, and not the amount of times that you helped out or you helped build people up. I mean, she helped build the women's division in AEW. She was a largely positive influence, at least from us on the outside, towards them getting a higher profile. She even is leaving as the official first person, for one half of the first team to win their only women's tag team gold at this point of any kind. Yeah. It's not a belt. It's a trophy, but she has it. So yeah, I mean, she does leave a big legacy, and it's kind of a shame that this is happening on her way out, because I was really looking at that as being a bigger part of her story at this point.
Yeah, it seemed like they had big plans for her. So I mean, it's just sad.
All right. Any more thoughts on Ivelisse? I think we've covered
I think we're good.
Most of the news for this week on her. More stuff. I should throw out there, she did do an interview with Hugo Savinovich on sorry, Miranda, can you just give us his socials real quick?
Yeah, it's Lucha Libre Online.
Thank you. Yeah. I failed to do that part of my duty there, but yeah, so she did do an interview with that there. The Bleacher Report has kind of a little bit of a synopsis on it. If you don't speak the Spanish to listen to the Raw interview, she has some very emotional things to say about this. She feels that there's a lot of factors that go into it, and that is also a good way to paint a more full picture of what might have happened, is to listen to her own words on this. All right. I think we're good. I think I'm going to move on to the next one, which is still drama, but it's funnier drama, I think. I think this is more in an interview, Dr. Wagner went out of his way to mention Bad Bunny at WrestleMania.
Of course.
More or less.
The ultimate Dr. Wagner move.
Yeah, that's what I feel like. It's if it wasn't going to be Dr. Wagner, it was going to be Psycho Clown or somebody else who is big in lucha and knows how to play with the media, Blue Demon somebody. Yeah. And wants to get that attention because Bad Bunny's big news right now. But basically he said things that were similar to what we said last week. He said that, Bad Bunny, well, didn't they use any of the luchadors that are available on that spot? I don't disagree with him at all. I hope he gets what he's secretly asking for, which is a little bit of the rub from Bad Bunny. Like, I would love to see a triple A match with Bad Bunny and Dr. Wagner. That would be.
Me too.
Well, I mean, there was a big story that came out this week too about Bad Bunny and how he learned the Canadian Destroyer the day before WrestleMania.
Oh,
so, I mean, one, I understand Dr. Wagner's point, but two, if he can learn a Canadian Destroyer in one day, you better watch out, because you never know what he can learn.
As we pointed out, he had probably the best partner for that Canadian Destroyer, because he had a natural athlete.
You don't think anyone in AAA wouldn't want to, take that, especially if they would be on every Latin news channel, website, social media, because another big thing that happened this week is Bad Bunny already sold out his next tour. Is completely sold out already.
Yeah.
That's
and tickets only went on sale for, I think, less than 24 hours.
Yeah, it wasn't very long.
So good.
So I get it, Dr. Wagner. Put your name on Bad Bunny. Ride that rocket until you can't. I totally get
it. Yeah. I mean, like I say, good luck to Dr. Wagner on that. I I'm on board for anything outcome of this, even if it's just Bad Bunny and Dr. Wagner going at it on Twitter. That's still good times for me. Yeah. So, and then, in our kind of happy, feel good end of the segment story, Bandito opened a new gym in Mexico for his 26th birthday. And of course, this was part of why last week we also reported that CMLL quote unquote released him, because there were AAA wrestlers that were present at the opening, and they notoriously don't really want their wrestlers to be around AAA wrestlers. I don't fully understand the politics of the situation. However, having talked to the Mass Republic people about it, it seems like they just really, really get upset about just being even in the same conversation as AAA. So it is what it is. But there was some cool pictures from it. There were a lot of neat wrestlers. He's definitely going to have he had a red carpet opening, and so you had luchadors in suits.
Press conference, right? Even.
Yeah.
9 yards.
Yeah. I mean, so very cool stuff. I'm very excited to see more lucha gyms opening up, especially with wrestlers like Bandito who are really relevant and present in the now, because that is an even faster ticket to get somebody signed up and going to school than having somebody who was really cool when they were a kid. So good luck to them on that, and I look forward to seeing future graduates from this school. Now, normally, I would jump into the Indie Roundup, but once again, the only real results I found were from people on the naughty list, so I'm going to just say it again. If you are a promoter, wrestler, fan, and you want to have a little more publicity, you want to hear us talk about your show, I will happily take your submissions, look at them. I promise I will watch any submission that comes to me. We will do our best to talk about as many of them on the air as we can. Mileage will vary. If safe shows, I absolutely will give you a shout out right now, because like I said at the top of the show, that's what I'm trying to promote. But we will, with the very least, we will watch all of your stuff. So please send it to us. I mean, it doesn't even have to be me. We'll give socials at the end of this. You can send it to Dusty or Miranda if you want. Just send it off, and we will the Indie Roundup.
All right, there you have it. Ladies and gentlemen, the road back to shows and the Indie Roundup by Brendan. As he mentioned, we are going to give socials out at the end of the show, so stay tuned if you want to submit some film for the Indie Roundup. Up next, we're going to kick it off to Denise Salcedo, who brings us this week's Lucha Central.
Why should you visit thechairshot.com? Thechairshot.com is your home for hard-hitting reviews, news, opinion, and analysis with attitude. Why? Because you're smarter than the average fan. Thechairshot.com. Always use your head.
Hey everyone, it's Denise Salcedo here in Lucha Central with a reminder of where and when to catch all of the great network content this week. Get the full lineup and listen to all of our shows in the podcast network section of luchacentral.com. On Tuesdays, Math, Mats, and Mayhem takes you inside the world of Lucha Underground as they take you weekly through the series with the benefit of hindsight and the benefit of special guests from the groundbreaking series. Check out the premiere video stream every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern on the Lucha Central YouTube channel and at luchacentral.com. Then listen to it on your favorite podcast platform every Wednesday. Tuesday nights live, it's Wrestle Boss, where Fabi Chulo talks MMA and pro wrestling with special guests and listener call-ins. Visit WrestleBossLive.com Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific to listen live or call in with questions, or download the show on podcast platforms on Wednesdays. Wednesday nights live on Facebook, it's Spanish show La Mesa de los Márgaros, giving you both the news and the cheese made from around the lucha world. Special guests and a whole lot of fun make it one of the most talked about shows in Mexico. Thursdays, it's straight out of the bodega with Papo Esco and PWR promoter Gabriel Ramirez, as they have guests from throughout the wrestling world pull up to give an inside look into their careers. From indie standouts to television superstars, each week brings a new name and perspective. On Friday, it's your double dose of Lucha Central Weekly podcast, one in English y el otro en español. Lucha Central Weekly is where you'll find all the top stories of the week, both inside and out of the ring from Mexico and anywhere luchadores are in action across the globe. Be sure to subscribe and follow all your favorite Lucha Central Network series on your favorite podcast platforms, either by their own series name or subscribe to the Lucha Central Podcast Network show pages to get all of the shows in one easy feed. And please consider giving a rating to help more fans find the shows that you love. For now, this is Denise Salcedo signing off from Lucha Central Central. Have a great week.
Lucha-Masks.com by Pro Wrestling Revolution, bringing you, in partnership with Masked Republic, the Lucha Brothers, as well as Japanese legend Ultimo Dragon. Go to lucha-masks.com and fight Lucha Strong with masks from your favorite Lucha legends and Pro Wrestling Revolution luchadores. Stay safe in style and represent your favorite luchador. Get yours now at lucha-masks.com, powered by Pro Wrestling Revolution.
Thank you to Denise, who brings us this week's Lucha Central Central, letting you know what's happening throughout the Lucha Central Podcast Network. Up next, Dusty. Take us through what happened this week on WWE SmackDown and Raw.
Yeah, well, surprisingly, wasn't a terrible week in WWE this week. On SmackDown, we had Rey Mysterio against Otis, and a few rough spots aside, this was really a nice, solid match. Otis, he's such a big guy, but he's so agile that he works as a great base partner for somebody like Ray, who needs a bigger, stronger guy now on the ground, like it is. But it works perfectly. They both know their roles and what role to play in this type of match. It really was nice. I'm still not a fan of the pairing between Chad Gable and Otis, but I'm as excited to see Chad Gable, at least after all the releases last week. I was glad to see his face, but I have a feeling it's more because they don't want AEW to have him than they want him, but that's another issue. But yeah, so, a nice solid match. Apparently they're continuing the feud between Rey Mysterio and Otis. I'd have just let that one die if it'd been me, but, WWE does some weird things. And then we had Monday Night Raw. We had Drew McIntyre and Braun Strowman versus Mace and T-Bar, and it ended in a rare mask disqualification. So, first up, we had Drew versus Mace and T-Bar in a handicap match, which inevitably went to a disqualification when they double-teamed him. But then Braun comes out, and I wish Teddy Long was here, because now we got us a tag team match, playa. So now we have Braun Strowman and Drew in a match against not Retribution, and eventually in the match, Drew rips off Mace's mask, and the match ends in an immediate disqualification. And after what we saw last week in AEW with Phoenix, how in the hell did WWE get this right and AEW hasn't? AEW even mentioned the fact that in Mexico it would have been considered a disqualification win for Phoenix. And I'm just flabbergasted that amongst so many things they got wrong lately, WWE was able to get this one detail right. And they did it to unmask them, because after the match then, Drew unmasked Mace in the match. That's how it ended. Braun unmasked T-Bar after the match. And so, yeah, interesting angle. I don't know why they
It's interesting that they used it on non-luchadors, too.
Yeah. Which is the only reason we're talking about this match on this show, by the way.
Yes.
Lucha angle in a non-lucha match. But yeah.
Storyline continuity, WWE, still. And I know this, you got a lot more storyline continuity on Raw that we're just like, what? What's happening?
Yeah.
What is going on?
Yeah, but interestingly enough, they get this one detail right, but not, like you say, not for luchadors. Very interesting. And I don't know why they didn't put the masks on the line in a match then. I mean, instead of just
Right?
ripping them off and doing the disqualification ending. The whole thing is,
Right? Oh yeah, no, they could have
yeah.
done. I mean, I would have been happy to have seen an Apuestas match, but no.
Yeah, they could have had one at WrestleMania last weekend, like, I don't know. And then we get to see Humberto Carrillo. Don't get excited. He was defeated by Sheamus in a squash match. Sheamus, he jumped Carrillo before the bell ever rang. He threw him outside. He beats up on him for a second, throws him back in the ring, brogue kick, and it's over. It's really not what we would want as Lucha fans, but at least Humberto got to be on TV, I guess. I'm trying to find a silver lining for a minute. So at least he was on TV. He looked good. He just didn't get to beat Sheamus. I mean, and it went, like, I guess I get the point, but it feels like there's other guys they could have used for that, or people that we, don't see as much. It's sad to see somebody as talented as Humberto used for enhancement talent.
Yeah.
And speaking of people being too good for the segments they were given, we had Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax still fighting backstage, and who comes to her defense and to have her back? Mr. Angel Garza. Woof. If anybody could turn this around and make something good out of it, I think it's Garza, but at the same time, what an awkward and sudden pairing. I feel like they're just plugging him into the Reginald role, and
Yeah.
I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
I think he deserves better than this. And
Yeah.
go ahead, Brendan.
Someone else pointed out that the joke, and I'm using the air quotes for those of you at home. The joke is that handsome men are dating Nia Jax, ha ha. And I don't get it. I don't think that should be funny, so I don't know why they're trying to play it that way.
No.
And
well,
the fact
okay.
Well, Nia's not going to date any uggos. I mean,
Yeah,
right?
that's one. Two, Reginald wasn't even that cute. And
well, I mean, nobody is as cute as Angel Garza in the WWE.
No,
let's be honest.
What? So
true.
Let's look at another odd pairing historically that ended up being very good, and that's Eddie Guerrero and Chyna. And so, if there is a way that they can pull that dynamic off with this, then there's hope. Because that, too, at first was a very odd pairing. But to see the suaveness, and we've told it exactly, like, Angel Garza is the next reincarnation, the next iteration of Eddie Guerrero.
Yes.
And obviously Nia Jax has a lot of those same Chyna vibes. So I could see why, in theory, this could happen, because we've seen it done before, and it was done pretty well. But also, I think there's a very big difference in the writing and in not only just the comedy, but in the storytelling in WWE now, where things that worked 15, 20 years ago won't work now. So
Absolutely.
I feel like that's where there's silver lining of like, oh yeah, this story reminds me a lot of that. But is it going to be as good? Probably not, which makes me sad. But I think if they were to treat it that way, it could have a lot of potential.
I did think about that too, especially since we recently watched an Eddie Guerrero Chyna match. I don't know if we talked about it in Lucha Libre, and watched it. It was very interesting. So I definitely was getting those vibes. But in watching that match, I remember that they got 3 weeks of build on that. Eddie was chasing her for like 2-3 months before the angle actually paid off, and she beat the hell out of him in the meantime. So, we just, to your point about the storytelling, they don't have the patience to do that kind of storytelling anymore. And it's just unfortunate, because you're right. I would, if I had confidence that they were going to do something other than, oh look, pretty boys like Nia, ha ha. I I would be more excited about this angle because it could be something interesting and legit magic, but I don't feel like it's going to be.
Well, they gave us like 7 months of Rey Mysterio versus Seth Rollins last year, so maybe they'll give this a build.
Touché, Dustin.
And then completely drop the story, but it counts.
Yeah. And then Seth comes back and it's like, oh yeah, there's that guy. But also this week at WWE, we had some releases. The most pertinent releases to our podcast. First, we have Kalisto. And he was drafted to SmackDown. They broke up Lucha House Party. We never got the payoff in that. We got a very quick interaction in the Battle Royale, which coincidentally was also Kalisto's only match for SmackDown after he got drafted, and his only match for WWE after he got drafted to SmackDown. And so he was released, and it's interesting, where does Kalisto go? He's got a lot of options. Does he reteam with Cinta de Oro, who used to be Sin Cara? Does he reteam with him? Do they reform the Lucha Dragons? Does he go solo? Does he go to Mexico, AEW, Impact? He's got a lot of options. Lucha Blog thinks his high-flying days are behind him, but this time we haven't seen him. He's really, developed his body. He's worked out a lot. He's been able to rest up. And we've seen that Ray can still go pretty hard with his style at his age. So I don't think Kalisto's age or his ring time is going to be a limitation on his abilities at all. I think he's still...
I think the other point that I believe was in that same review is more relevant, which is that he spent the last 10 plus years trying to adapt to the WWE style and being told that his instincts are not the correct instincts. So, I mean, how much of that is going to drag on him if he tries to, especially if he tries to work in the American indies? But that's
true. And going back, I mean, that's the same thing too. I don't know if we'll see him maybe change up his style a little bit. I could see him going to something a little more martial arts based, going back to the Samurai del Sol name. Mm-hmm. And that would be different and maybe fresh enough that he would feel differently about it compared to the kind of lucha style he employed in WWE. I don't know. There's a lot of options for him. Maybe more possibilities for him than anybody else as far as, the number of options. He could do a lot of things, which is really interesting and exciting. And we may not see him any one place at all. I mean, we may see him, Lucha Blog hypothesizes AAA. I think we could see him more on the American side, but I don't know where. I think anything's just as likely as the next one, but it'll be exciting. And both AEW and Impact would allow him to work Mexico, seeing most people do, and so it's an exciting possibility. And speaking of Impact, Chelsea Green, who had previously worked Lucha Underground as Reclusa, was released. She was kind of injury prone during her WWE run, but I see her going to Impact. She was Laurel Van Ness there, the hot mess. Yeah. That was her greatest triumph, I feel, as a wrestler. And I think Impact is a given for her to return to after this. From what I understand, their contracts with WWE, the first date they could appear on TV is July 14th, which happens to be a Wednesday. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. And yeah, that's something to keep your eye on.
I selfishly hope that she does Impact because they'll let her work indie dates, and she's based out of the Pacific Northwest, so I get to see more of her. So
I know we'll talk about it a little bit later in the show, but a certain company is bringing back women's wrestling regularly, also on Wednesdays. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of...
Chelsea Green would be all good over there as well.
She'd be a great fit there. I was going to bring that up when we talk about that later in the show.
If you want to know, you just got to keep on listening.
Yeah.
You don't have to wait too much longer, I promise.
We'll get to it soon, actually. But Speaking of next AEW, Dusty, let us know what happened this week. We have Elevation, Dark, and Dynamite.
Yeah, well, first up on Elevation, our highlight match of the week is Thunder Rosa versus Shauna Reed. This was, honestly, it was a glorified squash match, but Rosa was in the driver's seat, and she has such a spellbinding way of wrestling that it really stands out, and it impresses you every week with her progression. We've mentioned this before. Most people, you see them get better, and they start to plateau, but we haven't seen that yet in Thunder Rosa. Literally every week, we see more fluid dynamics in her movement, more, I don't know, she just better every week. She had an amazing fire thunder driver for the finisher. It was stunning, and she just continues to be one of the biggest badasses in all of wrestling. And it's, from the sound of social media, she's coming for Britt Baker's #1 ranking in the women's division, and it looks like Britt Baker's headed to challenge Shida, so maybe her first feud becomes title versus title if Thunder Rosa, is NWA by then. I don't know. There's a lot of exciting things I think could happen with Thunder Rosa going forward, and especially her feud with Britt Baker. I get that fight forever vibe from them. Mm-hmm. I would have never expected that a year ago. Like that just wouldn't have made sense to me, but now it's perfect. And like I say, really keep your eye on Thunder Rosa, because like I say, she's right behind Britt Baker, and if Britt Baker gets that title opportunity, Thunder Rosa continues her streak. She's the #1 contender. And then we wanted to, sorry, Brendan.
Oh, no, that's fine. I'm just mostly agreeing with you.
We also wanted to have a honorable mention match for TH2 versus Andre Montoya and Very Morales. This was another, like, a glorified squash match. But again, who doesn't want to watch TH2? Like, they're the best tag team that never gets to win on Dynamite. But they're incredible. Jack Evans hit an amazing corkscrew moonsault in this match. But for me, the real star power of their pairing lately has been Angelico and his Navarro Death Roll. And he hit the Navarro Death Roll for the win on Montoya, got the tap. Incredible. The work they put in every week is just, I mean, Jack Evans, for a little while, he was kind of not sloppy necessarily, but it felt like he just couldn't get his rhythm. But it's really seeming to come back now. Like he's really hitting the higher spots. Like I say, that corkscrew moonsault was incredible. Yeah, I really like this TH2, and I think they're on their way back up. They had some derailment there when Jack got so blown up in that match against Kenny. I think it kind of affected their momentum, but it seems that they're slowly getting it back and kind of coming into their own again, and I'm excited. I'd love to see them on Dynamite. We'll see what happens.
So one of the other cool things about this match, just really, really fast, it's all to influence wrestlers. So even though it was kind of a glorified squash match, the guys that are working with TH2 are definitely more expert at making them look good. So this is a very fun match to watch from that point of view too.
Yeah, it really was. It was a great lucha match. It was surprisingly solid for a squash match. That doesn't do it justice when I say a squash match, because it was really better than that, but I don't know how else to describe it. So there we are. And then Tuesday we have Dark, and our highlight match is Diamante versus Queen Aminata. And I love what we're seeing from Diamante as a singles wrestler. She is just so vicious as a wrestler right now, especially in the singles setting, and it really benefits her Sicaria moniker. This was Queen Aminata's AEW debut, and she had an impressive debut, but it takes way more than impressive to beat somebody as tough as Diamante. She split Aminata's lip for her trouble before getting the pin in 3 easy minutes. This was such a cool match if you're a Diamante fan. Like, she just looks undescribably tough, and we mentioned this before with the pairing of her and Ivelisse rather, and during her match last week with Thunder Rosa, Diamante just looks so tough and so badass, and it's really exciting. And she's also climbing in the rankings now. So it'll be exciting to see what happens there. And then on Wednesday night, you know what that means. It's Dynamite. First up, we had Hangman Page versus Pretty Ricky Starks. Streak versus streak. They had the two longest undefeated streaks in AEW. They were number 1 and number 2 contender. Whoever won became number 1 contender. And it was exciting. This match, for me at least, is something AEW does vastly better than the main roster WWE, and that's build new stars. These are both young guys who have really knocked it out of the park over the last year. Ricky Starks has never even performed in front of a full AEW audience. I mean, he's this good, and he's never been in front of the big audience. Like, It's just crazy. And the match definitely had the feel of something we're going to be seeing again someday, just because these guys feel like the future of AEW to me. I mean, they're what's coming next. They're young guys, and it's very different from WWE, where you're seeing the same guys we've seen for nearly 10 years, sometimes more than 10 years in the title picture, and they're not building new guys with it. They're just giving the old guys like a chance to be champion, and it's different. And so this just felt fresh and different for me. And Starks speared Hangman for a near fall and escaped the Deadeye. Instead, Page pulled Starks into a bulldog choke and pulled out the win just before the 9-minute mark. This was a really great match. If you're a Ricky Starks fan, how can you not be? He had an incredible promo on Dark where he told Hangman that he'd be his Huckleberry. He was wearing a very fine Western shirt in a bar. He looked like $1 million. He's from Texas. He knows the Undertaker. Starkey Baby knows where the good country bars are. Yeah. So it was, yes, it was just exciting, very cool. Hangman Page is already kind of a star because of the Elite, but to see Ricky Starks kind of on an equal level with him and how quickly he's climbed within AEW from leaving NWA to going to AEW, it's incredible. Like, we've talked about it on the show a lot, but Ricky Starks, yeah, he's it. And then we had what everybody's excited for this week, Trent versus Penta El Zero Miedo. I am loving the pairing of Penta and Alex Abrahantes. Something about him dunking on Trent, it's just hilarious to me. I love it. In the middle of the match, Alex runs out. He's Trent, hold on. Penta wanted me to deliver a message before the match, and I totally forgot. Penta says you suck. Penta says your friends suck. And Penta says, most of all, your mama sucks. And like, that is some serious Rudo business. And I love it. Like, so Rudo. Puro Rudo. And that's the kind of Rudo we need. I mean, like, it takes balls to step to Sue, especially on Dynamite. So I admire that. He stepped to Cody on the baby and the pregnant wife. Now he's stepping to Trent on his mom. Like, this is a real rude Penta, and I am here for it. The match itself was really interesting and well placed. Penta had a really nice sling blade into a destroyer combo. I find the pairing of Best Friends versus Triangle odd, like Death Triangle rather. I find it an odd pairing, but something about it really works for me inside the ring so far. After Alex got Trent nice and pissed off, Orange Cassidy got into the ring to even up the numbers against Alex, but he doesn't see Penta coming. He gets walloped, gets the sunglasses kicked into outer space. Penta kicked him, knocked his head off. It was amazing. And then Penta tosses Trent to Alex, who drives his forehead in with the microphone. Sounded like a gun went off before Penta scoops him up into the package pile driver for a beautiful win. And next week, we get Penta versus Orange Cassidy because of this match. And I am so excited. Like, this was incredible. I would not, like I say, on paper, Penta versus Orange Cassidy sounds a little
right,
odd.
Random.
Yeah, but at the same time, after seeing this match, I'm really excited for it. Like, I think they can do interesting things. And who would have thought Alex Abrahantes would be getting involved, like physically involved?
Well, everyone needs a manager and or a faction in AEW. It's pretty much a rule. I don't know if they have an HR manual, but I'm pretty sure if they did, it's part of it. Yep. And it's also a good utilization of the fact that maybe Penta doesn't have the ability to cut a long promo in English. Being able to have a manager in his case may be good, because AEW is so promo based, and they play heavy on that. So it seems to go in flow with the style of AEW, but it's also kind of a fun way to utilize someone who's already on your roster, who's bilingual. So I mean, I think it's a creative utilization of who you already have.
Yeah, they do a good job of that within AEW. When they pair somebody up, it always feels right in a way. You know what I mean? Like, there's a reason, it makes sense. But this, it's multifaceted. It's so many layers to it. But there's also something so funny and so humiliating for the opponent for Alex to run out and, hold on, Penta says you suck. You know what I mean? Like, the added element of it is just so good. It's way better than if Penta just yelled, you suck. Like, that would be just trash talk. But the comedy part of it, I didn't find predictable. Like, I didn't expect to see the humor in it as much as I have. But it works so perfectly. Like, AEW has just got it on fire with a lot of... I'm still mad about that disqualification finish that didn't happen last week with Phoenix. But everything else they do has really been fantastic. And I've been very impressed with
as long as they stick with this and devalue Penta or Ian. Because they keep doing that. And then...
I feel this is I feel like maybe I'm wrong. I hope they don't drop the story in a few weeks, as they're kind of prone to do, like I mentioned with the Cody thing. They're prone to dropping stories. But I feel like this is building to that street fight that we were supposed to get last year and didn't, and the Proud and Powerful stepped in. And so I hope that's where this is going. They're involving Sue again. You know what I mean? Like, all the pieces are falling into place, but Penta's doing all the heavy lifting by himself right now, which is kind of interesting. And it's just a unique spot for him, and I really like seeing him on TV every week. This is kind of what we all wanted for a long time, so it's nice to see him in a upper program. It's not necessarily like a main event program or anything. There's not a title on the line, but he's in an important program that's, nicely placed in the show, and a lot of people are very into Orange Cassidy, and so that's a nice match for him next week too. There's just a lot of signs that AEW has got some confidence in this and that it might be going somewhere.
Yeah, indeed. Well, don't forget that you can get the results for WWE shows like Raw and SmackDown, as well as AEW shows, Elevation, Dark, and Dynamite at luchacentral.com. Up next, we're going to talk some MLW and some big news that came out this week, where Court Bauer and MLW announced that they have landed a new TV deal with ViceTV, which is scheduled to launch next month. This is MLW's first big TV deal back here in the States in quite some time. And it does make sense that they're partnering with Vice TV, as Vice has been airing the Dark Side of the Ring documentary series. Season 2 is coming up very soon. Vice TV, though, is a channel that not a lot of people have. So it will be interesting to see if they are still going to have it available on YouTube, or is it going to be exclusive to Vice and maybe some of the other streaming platforms like BNTV, Fubo, and other formats like that. But a big deal that MLW is coming to ViceTV, another major wrestling promotion, big, North American wrestling promotion, landing a television deal. I just want to get your thoughts real quick on the MLW ViceTV deal. Do you think it's going to be beneficial, or do you think it may hurt MLW going with maybe a TV channel that isn't as well known as USA or TNT?
I don't know that there is a USA or a TNT that would be knocking down MLW's door. Allegedly, New Japan turned down the same deal that MLW accepted, but if they're going to use it as the lead-in to Dark Side of the Moon, or as a program in between, or Dark Side of the Ring, Dark Side of the Ring, or as a program in between Dark Side of the Ring and like the discussion program for Dark Side of the Ring afterwards, I could see where it's really going to draw a lot of eyes that have never seen MLW, don't know much about MLW. A surprising amount of people that have talked to me about Dark Side of the Ring don't watch wrestling anymore, period. It's, the people they remember. Yeah. And so to get them to watching a new wrestling program might be, getting a whole lost audience that would be built in. I think it's a gamble, but I think it's a very wise gamble on MLW's part.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think even more to the point that on there, I think that those lapsed fans that watch are really going to gravitate towards MLW for wrestling history. Like, part of what we've talked about a lot of the time is they have that because they have a history, they have a tendency for old school matches. They do other things won't care as much about, like they have where Mil Muertes basically buries, but but for the stuff to the channel, TV seems to be very aware that they're not in all of the markets, because I was able to, on Vice TV's official YouTube channel, watch all of season 1 of Dark Side of the Ring after shown on the air. So once every episode was out, they put it all up on the YouTube. So there may be a delay. We may not get enough, like a shiny new episode of MLW, something on the YouTube channel. We don't have Vice in our area. And that MLW has put in provisions for, we want to make sure network are still able to find us, watch us.
Good point. Another big announcement this week is that tickets became available for their first live schedule event happening on Saturday, July 10th at the famed 2300 Arena in Philadelphia. Another announcement too from Court Bauer is that they are going to be giving the wrestlers a break. I believe they're going to be wrapping up Fusion episodes in the next few weeks, and then from there they're going to be giving wrestlers a break before they go back to a live audience. So that's in some ways great that they're going to be able to build up a little bit of the suspense, but it could also be a way that maybe some of that momentum dies down, because since they have come back, they have really grown and reestablished their fan base. So, I think that there's positives on both sides, but it does mean that they probably were going to be wrapping up some storylines or building up to some things that maybe we have some big reveals on July 10th. As far as this week's episode of Fusion, we kicked off with Gino Medina versus Rocky Romero. And commentary really played up about the loss that Gino Medina had last week against Richard Holiday. Also, the famed history of Rocky Romero and the partnership essentially between MLW and New Japan, as far as MLW stars being featured on New Japan U.S. television like Leo Rush. And so really they were the commentary just really played up about how that loss against Richard Holiday may be affecting Gino Medina during this match in particular. As far as the match itself, it did start off slow, much more technical hold based, not so much in the high flying area, but there was an awesome 450 kick that Gino Medina landed on Rocky Romero. Of course, Rocky with the classic finger poke to the eye. And then we also had a great tornado DDT by Rocky Romero, and a suplex into the armbar to give Rocky Romero the win by submission. So this was a great match to start off with, very technical, but also some good moments of showmanship as far as Gino with his attitude and Rocky Romero with kind of his flash. But again, it's the second loss for Gino Medina. So I am interested in seeing what they're doing with Gino, because he had a strong comeback and a little program with oh my gosh. I keep forgetting his name. Gringo Loco.
Yeah.
And so he had a really great series of matches with him.
Gringo Loco.
Very aggressive. Yes. Very aggressive, very dominant in those matches against Gringo Loco, but now 2 losses. One against Richard Holiday and another against Rocky Romero. So I don't know if they're setting him up for something else or something different, or, what's happening here after bringing back that good start, just a little over a month ago. Another thing that we had was a Los Parks promo, and this was one really directed towards Selena De La Renta, and how El Jefe is very mad at her right now that she failed El Jefe, she failed Azteca Underground, and that they understand she has an opportunity, which we did see a promo about that she has an opportunity to help make things right with El Jefe. But we don't know what that means. So Los Parks are not happy with her. El Jefe is not happy with her. And, it seems like she has this one opportunity to try to make things right with him. We still don't have any idea as far as the larger picture with Azteca Underground. That's something they keep on teasing. I don't know if we'll have any resolution before the big show on July 10th. That is much more of a TV angle. So who knows if that's something that they're going to bring after the live event, or is it going to be something that they try and close up, or at least do some reveals before they go on hiatus or a little bit of a break. The main event, though, we had Buku Dao versus TJP, and this is a story of student versus teacher. This stemmed from a tag title opportunity that they had several weeks ago, in which Buku Dao got pinned and TJP got really upset, and we saw this heel turn from him in which he ended up pushing, shoving, and eventually beating up his own student. But they really played up of the experience of TJP versus this young gun drive of Buku Dao. The match started off with Buku Dao going for a kick, but then just TJP just shoving him backwards. And neither of them are huge men, but Buku Dao is short, like 5 foot. So, I mean, if someone of TJP's size, man. Yes, can just kind of shove them around, you know that they're really playing up that size disadvantage between the two. But really, it was a match of TJP playing on his experience and what works for him, as far as kind of that faster pace. He also did a springboard senton, and then of course, trying to go for that. He did both a surfboard hold in and an octopus stretch. So really playing up on those holds, but Buku Dao got the surprising win after a middle rope spinning flatliner. So that was the way that fusion almost ended as far as the final match. We did get a announcement at the end in which Hammerstone challenged for a title versus title match, which is not necessarily lucha related, but still pretty big deal. for MLW. But a great episode as far as 2 really good matches on this week's episode, and a lot of storytelling, including the continued saga of Azteca Underground. So with that, though, we have some Masked Republic news. Brendan, what's up with Masked Republic? What's going on?
Okay, so a thing is good, but it's teasing this. That's working because it's got me excited. Lucha-Mask teased that they are working with Andrade El Idolo, which could only one guy. They didn't show his face mask, but they are saying that something should come soon. Andrade El Idolo has that I want very much.
Yeah.
Please make soon. Kevin with Masked Republic was something is going to happen right around Cinco de Mayo, and then he said something. He mentioned Pale Horse, Urban Aztec. He mentioned Conan. I think there was another name in there that made me go, wow, this is going to be a huge announcement. Keep your ears. We'll be keeping our ears open. Something fun is coming up in the not too distant future. Those are like I said, it was all teasing. That's what they get.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to jump to this week's NXT. And not a whole lot of in-ring action, but some continued storyline development. First off, we had a interview. Beth Phoenix had a sit-down interview with Io Shirai, talking to her about what is next. Pretty much Io put over Raquel Gonzalez as one of the fiercest competitors that she's faced so far, and that she will be pursuing her rematch, but also will be taking some time away. That's when we had the interview interrupted by Frankie Monet. Frankie came in saying that, she congratulated Io on just having a lengthy reign. And even told Beth Phoenix how much she loved her and watched her as a kid. Before.
Yeah. Like they're not almost the same age.
Yeah.
Like 3 years apart.
And then, but Frankie Monet promised that she was going to fill in Io Shirai's shoes at the top of the women's division. So Frankie really pushing that she is going to be the new leader of the NXT women's division. So it seems very easily that, Raquel will probably face Io in a rematch, but after that, we're going to see probably Frankie move her way towards working to that NXT Women's Championship, maybe facing Io Shirai first, which that in and of itself would be amazing to watch. So, again, both of them having that lucha background, that's going to... And most people won't even know that. That's going to be undercover. So that's going to be fascinating. We also got a promo by Mercedes Martinez, who's pretty much has her eye on Raquel Gonzalez, but also mentioned how, Dakota Kai has kind of been the lapdog, which is very funny because that had been the opposite of the dynamic for much of last year. But Mercedes Martinez keeps on pressing to get an opportunity to face Raquel Gonzalez. And then as far as in-ring action, well, the only thing we really got this week came at the end of the NXT Cruiserweight Championship match. Kushida put out an open challenge, very similar to the one that he answered last week, and out came Oni Lorcan. The match itself was great, and Kushida won after putting in the hoverboard lock and forced Oni to submit. After the match, Santos Escobar appeared at the top of the stage, and then Legado del Fantasma jumped him from behind, and they were doing the beatdown until MSK came out to make the save. And so that led to what we're going to see next week. And it's going to be a 6-man tag. Kushida is going to team up with MSK. They are going to face Legado del Fantasma. So if you are looking, this is something I'm really, really looking forward to for next week. So keep your eyes on that. Also established for next week, Mercedes Martinez is going to face Dakota Kai. So we're going to see Mercedes kind of making her ways and steps towards Raquel Gonzalez, which Raquel, in her promo this week, mentioned that she's ready for all challengers. So I love how they're utilizing Mercedes Martinez since she's come back to NXT. And again, building it up to Mercedes versus Raquel, shut up and take my money.
Right?
Shut up and take it. Just take it. I don't even know what to say. I mean, I don't know when the next takeover will be, so this will likely be on TV. But even then, I think that this is going to be fascinating. It's going to be such a good build up. And I mean, Mercedes Martinez is tough. She has been in this wrestling business for quite some time. She has such a big background, in wrestling and different forms of fighting. I think that could really, even though what she may not have in size like Raquel, she can make up in style. And I think that's going to be different than what Raquel has faced. But it also will help establish her championship, because I do feel like, Raquel is going to be champion for quite some time.
Oh, she's going to be for quite some time.
Yes. So, again, not a whole lot of in-ring action, but some storyline development. And again, next week, 2 really good matches already set. A 6-man tag with Kushida and MSK versus Legado del Fantasma. And then, of course, again, Mercedes Martinez versus Dakota Kai. And, of course, you can get those results on luchacentral.com. But up next, Dusty, go ahead. Teach us a lesson. Give us this week in Lucha Libre history.
Yeah, that's right. Now it's time for This Week in Lucha Libre History. Be sure to check in at luchacentral.com every single day for This Day in Lucha Libre by Pep Carrera for information, birth dates, anniversaries, matches of the day, amazing videos, and even more. And it's all about Lucha Libre at luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre. This week I chose April the 20th, 1998, when Ultimo Dragon faced La Parka on WCW Monday Nitro. It feels weird to say that this is both of these guys in their prime, considering they're still out there putting on pretty good matches, but it's at least a chance to see them during their WCW prime. There were some great spots, the Ultimo Dragon getting the knees up on a dive, or a jump from the top rope, rather, from La Parka. Like, this is stuff you don't get to see them do anymore. It was really cool. Los Guerreros are here in the match. Chavo lost to Ultimo Dragon the night before, so Eddie cajoles him into interfering. Chavo goes in, he pushes Ultimo Dragon off the top rope, and La Parka picks up a big win, especially for him at that time, before he later teamed up with Eddie and the Latino World Order later that year. This was the 3rd or 4th match on Nitro between La Parka and Ultimo Dragon. It was his first win between the two, so it was really exciting, really fun. Great match, highly recommended. It's only about 7 minutes, easy to watch. What did you pick this week, Brendan?
This week I chose, this is not a 7-minute match. This week I chose April 21st, 2017, when Legends of Lucha Libre star Taya Valkyrie, not Frankie Monet, won the Libre AAA Reina de Reinas Championship from the second time in her career, beating Ayako Hamada at the Auditorio Fausto Gutierrez Moreno in Tijuana. This is a match that set the internet on fire when it happened. I got to feel like quite the smug star by having already watched the match by the time the internet had caught on, because I was watching that Triple Mania or that pay-per-view live. First off, a thing about this match that I had forgotten is Taya comes out to Johnny Mundo's Born in the USA, which is also wildly inappropriate. It was because she was coming into this heel, and Hamada came out wearing Perros del Mal colors, had the markings on the face and everything. So she was very definitely set up to be kind of the defending face, because part of what happened when Taya aligned with Johnny Mundo was that she, in story, left the Perros behind and turned betrayed them pretty hardcore. But this was such a back and forth match that was brawling everywhere. There was, tons of blood. It was just physical in ways that you don't expect a TV match to be, let alone a TV match for the women, because it's not something that you see all the time. The women do all the time. The two of them went at it, and by the end of the match, when Taya actually won, the fans were cheering for her. They'd forgotten that she came out as just an absolute jerk at the beginning of the match. They were just so impressed with that match. It didn't matter who won. They were going to be on their feet cheering for either person, and they were just. And then Vampiro comes out and and it's a truly historic match. I think most people that are listening to this show probably will have watched it, but if you haven't, definitely go check this one out this week. This is a killer match. Miranda, what did you go with this week?
So this week I picked April 22nd, 2018, and that is when Legends of Lucha Libre superstar Penta Zero M won the Impact World Championship after beating Austin Aries and Rey Fénix in a three-way match at Redemption. And this was at the Impact Zone in Orlando, Florida. And this interested me for a few reasons. One, 2018 was really the prime time for Lucha Libre in Impact Wrestling. You had LAX in there, Penta was regular, Fénix was there, and now where are they all at? In AEW. And so it was kind of a callback to that. And then the match itself, there are some clips out there. Impact did a really good review video of it where you got to see the highlights of it. And I think that especially because it was a three-way that involved Penta and Rey Fénix, you got to see both of them in a tag team dynamic when they had movesets against Austin Aries, but also against each other. And I think that's very rare on American television that we've seen that. We've seen them one-on-one, but not in a dynamic where you played both the tag team element and the singles element in a single match. And so what I learned about this, I didn't know at the time, is that this was kind of already done at WrestleCon 2018 when they had a Impact versus Lucha Underground co-promoted event, and that they had already done this at WrestleCon, and Penta won that match as well. And then this got put together after Alberto El Patron was fired from Impact Wrestling right before the Redemption pay-per-view. Pentagon Fénix were scheduled to face each other, but when El Patron left, they ended up booking this as a triple threat match. And I think, again, fans were shocked that Penta won, but also he didn't win it for very long. He defended the championship twice, one in a triple threat match again against Eli Drake and Jimmy Jacobs, the next day, and then a second time against Austin Aries, in which he lost, and Austin Aries got the belt back. So he was champion for literally a cup of coffee, and then the belt went back to Austin Aries. But this is a great match to watch, too. again, because of you have both of the dynamics in one match, and I mean the element of Austin Aries in there too. This is Austin Aries in a great match where he sells fantastic, his moveset is great, and this is kind of in the prime when things were going really, really well. And now to see where everybody is as well too is kind of interesting, knowing on the other side of history. Also, we'll talk about Impact in a little bit later too. In the show, but for me, thinking about how Impact has changed over the years and what is coming ahead, who knows what's going to happen. But that's why I picked that match.
Yeah, very cool.
Good stuff.
Yes. Well, we talked about this day in Lucha Libre that you can find at luchacentral.com. Brendan, what else can our listeners find on luchacentral.com?
Oh, man. So I'm going to do this again. If you're listening to this and you haven't visited, it's luchacentral.com is Lucha Libre, where you can get all of your top news in English, Spanish, find best curated video content seen anywhere else, find when Lucha Libre events will be happening in your area, find photo galleries from top photographers covering Lucha Libre around the world. A place to have. In this case, we're not taking any money. It's just there. Luchacentral.com. Your centralized things, Lucha Libre.
All right. Thank you for that, Brendan. And with that, though, I'm going to let you also lead us into some CMLL news.
Yeah, so I wanted to give an update because there is a pay-per-view on Ticketmaster Mexico this weekend. The card it's a very mileage is going to vary for some people, but let's go over this. So the show is going to be on Saturday. It's not on Friday like they've been doing other pay-per-views. It is. First up, we're going to have Perico Zacar versus Samuel, and these are the minis, and it's going to be a Relevos Incredible match. So that means you've got, some guys that normally don't team with each other. They might use that for story, or they might, it's an interesting mix of the guys to make the unusual start to the show. The next match, we've got Mapola and Marcelas and La Yarochita. This is another, it's, time you have Dennis and the combination of the other, going to be in for something quite fun. I'm interested in how that one plays out. And then we're going to have the final of the Mexican trios. So we're going to have Guerrero Maya Jr., Star Jr., and Stuka Jr. versus Ansarobo, Raziel, and Views. So this is amazing. You've got a mostly heel team against an all-face team. You've got Flyers against Technics. It's going to be a match. It's most likely. So you're going to see a lot of real hardcore lucha, which is just that gets me in the feels. So I'm excited for this. We're going to have Caristico and Mitch attempting to defend their tag team championship against Nero and Terrible. So that's those new Nuevos Ingleses. I'm the title lands on this one. The fans there, I would expect the title to change hands because that would irritate them and they'd get a really large crowd reaction. So who knows? And our main for the pay-per-view this weekend, we're going to have Atlantis, Euphoria, and Volador Jr. against Barbario, Cavernario, Gran Guerrero, and Ultima Guerrero. This is kind of a rematch that never happened because of COVID and then injuries and other things. And you will notice that Euphoria is on the opposing team from Ultimo and Gran Guerrero, and then they have Barbario, Cavernario there. So they're kind of a little storyline that was happening where Euphoria wasn't very happy with you could wind up with very interesting ways this plays out. I would guess that Atlanta has his mask nearly torn off of his face. But that's our card for the weekend. Again, the show is on. It is on Ticketmaster Mexico. There is no option because of Ticketmaster Mexico. Maybe a while before these matches turn up on YouTube. If you are interested in any of them, I highly recommend spending the $8 to $9 that it'll take to get this pay-per-view. But that's my CMLL update.
Okay. And we can't do CMLL without a little AAA news. So, Dusty, you have some news that just came out regarding AAA.
Yeah, that was announced in a Spanish press release and press conference that Raya de Reyes will be held on May the 1st. They have not announced any kind of location for it yet, so it's very likely that it's going to be like a closed-door show. But hopefully, we'll get to see it. I'm sure there'll be some workaround to see it in the United States. But the bigger news, or maybe not the bigger news, but the, interesting news, they said the Reina's title had been vacated due to Taya signing with WWE. That was kind of a given. Pep Carrera gave me the heads up on this. I had to check out the press conference myself. But yeah, they said that the title had been vacated and that heavily implied that the new champion will be, crowned on the show. We will see a new Reina's champion on the show. So that's very exciting to know that we've got that title match on the show right away. And It'll be exciting to see what happens. It's very little build for a big show, but they had some storylines earlier this year that just kind of seemed to be paused. And so I think that's where those storylines were heading, and I think that's probably why they canceled the Auto Lucha show quietly a couple weeks ago. It just kind of, they were ready to do, I don't know about fans necessarily, but I think they've known that May the 1st was Raya de Reyes longer than we have, and that it was just a matter of whether or not they could have fans before they announced it, and they finally just announced it. But we'll see. I mean, it's exciting. Well, as far as I know, no matches have been announced yet, but we'll see, hopefully in the next week and a half. It's next weekend, so we'll find out what happens.
Okay.
Next weekend, man. And I thought, sure.
Yeah.
Up next, Brendan, we have some news on this week in Ring of Honor, including something we alluded to earlier in the show about Ring of Honor bringing back a Wednesday staple.
So, first off, this week we had the five television. They did a nice little opening segment for that. Now, the bad news for fans of this show is there was no real lucha. They did feature in their kind of history, featured predominantly, obviously, current world champion was in there, but also that. So they do give some hefty nods to that. The matches we got, these were voted on by fans, so that partly their decision. We got Briscoe versus Briscoe. We got the brothers fighting two guys doing a good old fashioned Southern style. This is probably going to be a good match for you, but again, nothing lucha at all. And then you had the pure title match, and where you had Jonathan Gresham versus Jay Lethal. It's pure rules match with two of the best pure rules wrestlers that ROH has. It's not strictly lucha, but it's closer than a lot of things you'll see, and it's well worth. As for the other announcement that we were alluding to, because I'm so excited, I'm just going to toss this back to you. Go ahead and give us the announcement on what we can expect coming out of ROH in the.
Yes, so for a little bit of context, back on the 19th anniversary show, it was announced that Ring of Honor was going to restart their women's division with a tournament to crown a new champion. The previous championship was deactivated in 2019, and they haven't had really any women's wrestling or women's champions since then. So we are going to get a women's tournament this summer, but also now Women's Division Wednesdays is coming back. So similar to what they used to do, Women of Honor Wednesdays, we have Women's Divisions Wednesdays, which is going to start next week, Wednesday the 28th on Ring of Honor's YouTube channel. There's going to be a new women's match every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, featuring newcomers and Ring of Honor veterans. At this point, it's not quite tied into the tournament, because no participants for the tournament have been announced yet. The only tie-in they currently have is an ongoing storyline between Quinn McKay and Angelina Love. Those are pretty much the two of the few women on the current roster that actually have a story. But yeah, we are getting Women's Divisions Wednesday on Ring of Honor's YouTube, so I'm very excited. That's the one thing, as we've talked about on the show, that Ring of Honor has been missing since their relaunch, and it's great to see them come back with it. But the landscape of women's wrestling has changed a lot since 2019, primarily because NXT, both WWE and AEW, have swooped up a lot of independent talent. So it's going to be very interesting to see who they bring in. Now, as we talked about, there's a few releases that happened in WWE that could really benefit from them. Say like a Chelsea Green, who's worked television, who's worked the independent circuit, and as much as it does make sense for her to go to Impact, maybe she'll stop by Ring of Honor as well. Who knows? Even though Ring of Honor doesn't have quite the comedic side too, Billie Kay and Peyton Royce were also released, and that would be great for them too. But there's still a lot of fantastic independent talent available to be a part of this Women's Divisions Wednesday. So good on Ring of Honor. Very, very excited to see what this comes about. And it does seem like they can utilize this time frame to start building up for the tournament that's going to happen later this summer. So, round of applause for Ring of Honor. Just continuing to kill it.
Yeah,
some key name in those WWE releases that I think is highly likely to show up in the Ring of Honor tournament, maybe before she goes and does something else, and that future, if not present, Hall of Famer, I don't have track on that. Having her a lot of credibility to it and really help them.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Yes. So more content on Wednesdays to watch if anyone's keeping track.
Yeah, more, but it is. Watch it Thursday morning.
Yeah.
Off of Twitter.
All right. So for our final news story of the day, we're going to end off with Impact Wrestling. Again, this is now their second week on Thursday nights. As far as this week on Access TV, we did get a match between the Good Brothers and Decay, Crazy Steve and Black Taurus, which the Good Brothers won by hitting the Magic Killer on Crazy Steve. But again, Black Taurus is finding a very good rhythm at Impact. And I believe he had a match last week against Doc Gallows, which he did lose as well too. But being in a pretty high profile series of matches with the Good Brothers is some good visibility for Decay. And again, Black Taurus has found a very good rhythm, I feel like, with Decay and with Impact Wrestling. I do want to bring up the pay-per-view this Sunday, Rebellion, April 25th, which is being highlighted by the groundbreaking, earth-shattering, I don't know if you can, a little bit of sarcasm in my tone, and we'll talk about that in a second. Champion versus champion match, Impact World Champion, Impact Unified World Champion, Rich Swann, is going to be facing AEW World Champion Kenny Omega. Last week on Impact Wrestling, they had a press conference between the two parties, representatives from both companies, and it did give it a bit of oomph that the story really needed. Both on the formal side of both companies being able to go out and explain the format of the match. Something very interesting that's coming out is that a referee from both companies will be present during the match. They keep mentioning that for a reason. What that reason is, we won't know until Sunday. But that's a point, and that there will be a winner. That is their purpose, is to determine a winner, and that the point of that, and regardless of who wins, they will be expected to be champions of both companies, to run full schedules, to defend both titles, all of the all the things they are supposed to do. But it still, for me, has been a lackluster buildup. We finally got this. It was a great promo package that was put together, that was aired on This Is Rebellion on Tuesday. The same promo package was aired on AEW Dynamite, and of course again on Impact this Thursday. But another interesting tidbit, and this seems like a little bit of blending of storyline and real life, is that Tony Khan went on Busted Open radio show earlier this week and talked about why there hasn't been much publicity of Impact on AEW. His explanation was that he pays for the airtime on Impact Wrestling, and so that's why Impact has promoted AEW, but not the other way around. As I'm shaking my head, I'm wondering what this is not a partnership. The Forbidden Door has not been opened. Now you're just saying that you've paid for airtime, and that's why. And that's why we haven't seen that much publicity on AEW television. But that still does not negate, as we talked about, you had Kenta on your show beating up Jon Moxley to help promote a New Japan angle. How come you don't have Rich Swann come on your show for just one night? Just like you did with Kenta, to help build the story.
The only time they mentioned it was during a commercial between Trent and Penta this week. Like, that's the only time it's ever been mentioned on AEW. Mm-hmm. And that's crazy to me. Like, what does Impact get from this? Like,
and that's been the big question all along, and it just doesn't seem much.
It just seems like it was to get the Good Brothers, and that's all that anybody cared about.
And now that you've mentioned this angle with the referees, they had a perfect that too. Why didn't they have something with a referee at some point during Dynamite this? We just mentioned it, maybe it won't be Aubrey, but just say, there's no Aubrey Edwards. There's no nonsense referee. Maybe she's the ref they'll pick for this weekend's pay-per-view.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah. Go ahead.
Seriously.
Yeah. It's it's been for me personally, as a big fan of Impact, been a very frustrating angle to see this, to not be upon its full potential. But this does have very big implications, and this could really go a whole lot of ways. For me, I feel like I know Kenny Omega is going to win, but how he wins, what that means, that's still a really big question mark that can have implications on that. But also, what does that mean if they haven't promoted it this far on AEW television? What makes anybody think once Kenny wins those belts or wins the belt, that's going to have any visibility on AEW television, and it's going to make any kind of impact on Impact? I mean, they rarely acknowledge him and talk about how he's a AAA Mega Campeon. You know?
Only when it's relevant, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, they don't make it feel like a big deal.
Yeah. But real quick, as far as just the rest of the card, some interesting tidbits. The Knockouts Tag Team Championships are going to be on the line. Fire and Flava, Kiara Hogan and Tasha Steelz are going to be defending the titles against Jordynne Grace, and just announced Rachel Ellering making her debut with Impact. So I think that's a great steal, great grab for Impact. That's going to be a really, really good team, and I think it's going to be a fantastic match. So keep an eye out for that, for the Impact Knockouts Tag Team titles. We also are going to get an 8-man tag match. Chris Sabin, Eddie Edwards, James Storm, and Willie Mack are going to be facing Violent by Design, which is Eric Young, Joe Doring, Rhino, and Diener. So we get our dose of Willie Mack in an 8-man tag match, and I think this is going to be pretty entertaining as well.
Yeah.
We have a last man standing match, Trey Miguel versus Sami Callihan, and then a 3-way match, a triple threat for the X Division Championship, Ace Austin, Josh Alexander, and TJP. That's going to be fire. That match is I can just already tell, going to be fantastic. We do have the Good Brothers, who are going to be facing Finn Juice, David Finlay, and Juice Robinson for the Impact World Tag Team Championships. Deonna Purrazzo is going to be defending the Knockouts Championship against Tenille Dashwood. And, of course, your main event, Rich Swann versus Kenny Omega. Mauro Ranallo is going to be announcing, or going to be on commentary for that. So they're really laying it in thick over this past week. Really doing all of these final big pushes for that. So who knows how that's going to translate into pay-per-view buys, into views, into social media mentions. Things are going to change after Sunday, one way or another, whether they're really good or really bad. Things are going to change. It is very much a culmination of months and months of this what's happening, this forbidden door type of conversation, but we know how much of this is played out. So there is segments of this that still feel honestly a little disappointing. But it's not over till the fat lady sings. So we're just going to see what happens this Sunday at Rebellion. It is available on pay-per-view on the Impact Plus app as well. This time next week, the world that we know of Impact Wrestling is going to change. That I know. Right?
Yeah, potentially the world of wrestling, but not holding my breath.
Yes. This was December, we'd probably be a lot more optimistic, but we know now. We know so many things. We know too many things. But that is it for this week's episode of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast. Thank you all so much for listening. Don't forget to check out luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre. You can follow Lucha Central on social media at Lucha Central on Facebook and Instagram, and at LuchaCentral.com on Twitter. Don't forget to check out the YouTube page. Lots of great content, including Denise Salcedo, who does previews and post shows of WWE events, plus her interviews. Lots of great matches and interviews from other staff at luchacentral.com. So hours and hours that you can spend on the YouTube page just watching videos. While you're at it, go ahead and follow us on social media. Dusty, where can our listeners find you?
I am on Instagram at Dusty Murphy, and I am on Facebook at facebook.com/Dusty Murphy.
And Brendan, where can our listeners find you?
I am 321 T-shirt guy. That's the numbers 321 T-shirt guy spelled out. I am on Instagram. I am on Twitter.
And me, Miranda Morales, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at the #Miranda, spelled out. A big shout out to our friends listening at thechairshot.com, a partner who now this is airing every Monday. So thank you to all of those who are listening through thechairshot.com. If you are listening to this through your favorite podcast streaming platform like Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Speaker, Podbay, all of that, you can rate, review, subscribe. That way you get notifications every time a new episode drops. You can leave us a 5-star rating and you can give us a review. Let us know your thoughts on the show, topics we should cover, things you agree with, don't agree with, whatever it may be. Let us know. Also, as we mentioned earlier in the show, if you are an independent wrestler, fan of an independent promotion, promoter, anything regarding independent wrestling and lucha libre, make sure you reach out to Brendan Barr, and you could possibly be featured on a future segment of the Indie Roundup. So, I mean, hey, nothing better than free publicity.
Yeah.
Who knows? Who knows? Again, it's up to Brendan's discretion, but
it could be your ticket to fortune and fame. You don't know. You don't know
until you try.
I love watching indie matches, so I'm not gonna lie. I'm still watching the naughty one.
Oh yeah, we just don't talk about it.
I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just don't say anything. That's
we
all
hide
right.
our shame
That's all right.
from God.
Well, again, everyone, thank you so much for listening. We will be back next week, as always, giving you the Lucha Libre news and content you need to know about. So for Brendan Barr and Dusty Murphy, I'm Miranda Morales. Thank you all, and we will be back next week.
Respetable público, lucharán a 2 de 3